Logan here. I am the media producer for Legacy Treatment Center and an alumni legacy guide, and I am absolutely thrilled to be introducing this documentary project to you that has been given the green light and will begin filming this September. Now, it's going to follow a client journey through a 90-day wilderness therapy program, and that program will be our very own Legacy Treatment Center. So what I'd like to do is jump on a phone call with Nick Aldridge and Derek Daley and do a bit of a deep dive into this project so you can learn more about it. But what I can say right now is that it will be an industry-first objective look into the wilderness therapy process. Keeping that in mind, I'd like you to know that we are accepting applications for willing participants. Just need to be 18 and up, an adult, men, women, anyone who's willing to step into their own hero's journey and share that story on camera that could ultimately help others find healing as well. Now, there will be significant scholarships available because we don't want financial barriers to get into the way. So without any further ado, let's have a conversation with Nick and Derek.
I'm Nick Aldridge. I'm the director of this documentary. I'm part of a diverse production team. There's Emmy award winners and Oscar qualified filmmakers as part of that team. We are really drawn to this story because we wanted to just tell a message of hope amongst all the noise around mental health, because there is a really serious and troubling mental health pandemic going on that there's only ever negative storylines about the statistics. There's never anything that shows people working through that or offering a kind of a way out of that darkness that you find yourself in. And I've been through that, and other people within the team all have as well. We're not coming from a place of judgment. We're coming as an objective outside team to document what's going on and create a film that tells this like hero's journey of these patients moving through this physical and beautiful space, but also show the really raw and honest therapeutic journey that they're going through and like the emotional bumps along that way. We're only filming people that want to be there. We're not interested in people that are sent out to therapy that don't want to be there. I've seen that story told. It's more about people that are making that choice themselves, because that's a huge part of the hero's journey. You have to answer that call yourself, and we're really going to be there capturing that moment. In the past, I've made films looking at heart donation. So, for example, I filmed a young man who was waiting for a heart transplant. I filmed with him over a 3-year period. We became incredibly close friends. I used to go up and help care for him when his mum needed a break. And it was intended to show the journey of someone waiting for a heart transplant, to sort of shine a light on the real lack of organ donors. Sadly, he was waiting for a heart for so long that an operation I filmed went quite horribly wrong and led to him dying through no mistake by the surgeons in any way. It was just the fact that there's such a huge wait for hearts and organs in general in the UK. And he became a victim of that crisis. And then the film was very successful. It won a lot of awards and was mentioned in Parliament as they changed the legislation. This storytelling can be a really powerful tool in changing the narrative around mental health. I've also made shorts looking at the mental health pandemic in men in particular, because there are so many statistics that show that men are kind of not able to really talk about their mental health problems and the kind of violent outcomes that often happens with that. We're going to follow a 90-day therapy process. It's going to be raw, it's going to be real, it's not going to be led by anything, it's going to be documenting what happens. My real reasons for doing this are, so when I was 17, I was hit by a car. My left leg was broken to a right angle, held together by metal for 5 years. 6 of my ribs were broken, 1 tore through my lung, shoulder blade was fractured, and then I was in an induced coma. And I had 23 years of treatment for my physical injuries, but I never received any real help for the emotional scars that I suffered. I suffered from real deep depression during this recovery, and I had to really fight for that myself. I come from a lower income background, and the barriers that we faced when accessing just basic therapeutic care were enormous. We couldn't really afford it, and there wasn't really anything on offer. So I started exploring something that could be a positive story in this world that could show people going on a healing journey. And I did over a year's worth of research before I kind of stumbled upon this story, this group. We weren't looking to make a film about a specific program. It's very much a documentary about the process and witnessing that hero's journey.
Wonderful. So you had this idea and you came across Legacy on your own research?
So I was speaking with someone from the OBEH and asked for a few people to speak to, and Legacy was one of those organizations. So I just called them up And after a few conversations, had a chat with Derek, and we both had some very similar family experiences and similar kind of journeys through that. And because of that, I kind of thought this is the one, this is the place that I need to film with. It's not an advert for Legacy. It's just an easier route in for me to tell that story.
This is an interesting place I'm sitting from. I'm watching, Nick, you're trying to capture the raw truth of what therapeutic use of wilderness and adventure can do. Derek, as you're running one of these programs, that's kind of a risk on your end to allow this third party to come in and pull back the veil, open the kimono. What is that like for you co-signing this adventure with Nick?
As you can imagine, I think that skeptic in me sort of popped up. There's a tendency to look at wilderness therapy, and we're seeing it right now play out in different ways where it's really over dramatized what the actual experience is. And I knew that that's not something that we wanted to participate in. But as I talked with Nick and heard his story and the authenticity and the goals of the project, it spoke to me. And I've spent the last 20 years really trying to capture the magic and share it with as many people as possible, right? One of the things that I learned early on was how inaccessible it is. People from my community and my family members could not access this level of care because it was too cost prohibitive. It's largely been reserved for wealthy families. And so that's been a goal and a mission. But really part of the goal is to pull back the curtain on the beauty of this work, the effectiveness of this work. As you know, and as Nick knows, we've invested heavily in research and outcomes to be able to tell the story from that perspective. But I think being able to see it through a narrative, through people's experiences, my hope is just the real honest story. Just hear it like this is what it looks like in all its raw truth and beauty. That's enough. And I think the world needs to see that, because I happen to believe that what we need now more than ever is to find ways to engage more people in this type of healing endeavor and activity. And I'd like to think of Legacy being really at the forefront of engaging clients in the hero's journey through a nature experience. And I think people need to see this. And I really trust Nick and the filmmakers here to tell a real honest, raw, vulnerable story.
So before we entered into agreement with Legacy, we spoke for about 6 or 7 months of just kind of making sure that they trust us and we trust them, and we both knew what we were going to do. We were speaking with other organizations, but we really felt there was an understanding there. And it wasn't until we came and filmed a sample tape to sort of show what we want to do, how we're going to tell this story. Because it's a really vulnerable place, right, for therapists and also patients to let this be shown. It's when you're at your most vulnerable, and it was really important for us to just work with an operation of trust. Building into that, we also were developing with Legacy and with kind of experts in the film world a process of consent, so that patients knew what we were doing, why we were doing it, and how we were doing it. And we're going to kind of keep that rolling consent going through the filming, checking in at frequent points, because this isn't an extractive process. This isn't like focusing on people's trauma. It's showing the real honest, hard work that these patients are doing and reframing what real strength is. The emotional journey that our patients are going to go on will mirror the physical journey we'll see them go through as well.
That's something that stood out to me in working with Nick. And when he came here on Legacy on site to film the first sort of pitch deck, we weren't sure how it was going to go and how our clients were going to respond. And there was a lot of resistance and skepticism, understandably so. And then when Nick arrived and just sat with patients and clients in circle and parents and described the project, nearly everyone got on board and they were happy to participate. And I think that speaks to the integrity in which Nick is pursuing this project and a commitment to the consent on behalf of the participants, not just from day one, but continued. Part of what we're doing here, we're going to get word out, is we're going to invite people who are interested in maybe some financial help and reduction to access this level of care that is oftentimes not accessible, and also an opportunity if they're willing to be a part of this project and share their story.
What does the outline of the documentary look like? What is the structure? Are you going to be choosing a few people to follow, and how, often are you going to be visiting with them? Are we going to be interviewing them, or is it more of like a fly on the wall?
We're looking for a really diverse group of patients because we want our audience to see themselves in the people going through this therapy. It needs to be relatable to as wide an audience as possible. So we're looking for a group of patients that represents the general population as well. A really minimal crew, though, that's a key thing, because part of the way that I work is spending a long time with people, and it's about building up that relationship, because as soon as someone throws a camera in your face, you act differently. But after a while and time and trust is built, that fades away. There's always an acknowledgement there's a camera there, but we're going to be right there with our patients as they're going through it. There will be interviews, but the plan is not just to show these interviews on camera. There'll almost be kind of commentaries to when we're seeing the actual therapy process taking place. We're much more interested in filming like an observational film. We're never going to film with experts outside of the film. It's all going to be structured around the people on the process and the therapists going through them and the field guides. We're never going to jump out of that world. The whole point of the film is to immerse ourselves in this therapy process and immerse the viewer and the audience in this therapy process as well. So it's all going to be kind of observational filming. I'm going to be living pretty much with the patients during this period of time. We're going to focus primarily on the first 60 days of it. And then the last 30 days will be much more sporadic, much more occasional filming. And also, we have to respect the patient's right to just say, no, not right now as well. There's going to be moments which are just too raw. When we filmed the sample tape, there was one point when a cameraman stopped filming because he thought it wasn't appropriate to capture that moment. That patient later on approached that cameraman and asked if he could see that footage of that moment, because he'd never seen himself in that state before. And the cameraman didn't have the footage because he'd made that judgment call. And that created a bit of a barrier, because then the cameraman had made a judgment on this patient's behavior. And that's not what we're there to do. We're going to capture everything with the knowledge that there's consent. So if there's anything that is just too unbearable to be shown, it will not be included in the film, because we're not there to re-traumatize people. The reality is that although the film finishes when the credits roll, the lives of the people in the film do not. And they need to know that they have that control. Otherwise, they're never going to be vulnerable enough. They're never going to be really authentic, because they're always going to have that censoring thing going on. We're there to capture the therapy, not to change the therapy. The therapy is the most important part of this process. I'm planning on doing a kind of a festival circuit after it. We want them to be part of the Q&As after, to be proud of this thing, to take part in community screenings and community talk.
I believe this is a story that needs to be told, and it's not easy. And as we've heard Nick articulate over and over, how we're going to pursue this with the utmost integrity and an awareness, but it is a story that needs to be told, maybe now more than ever. We are in multiple crises in America. From mental health to isolation to substance abuse to gambling, screams, the list goes on. And I believe and I see this as a real antidote to many of those things. And I think it's something that's really worth finding a way to capture and share with the world. That said, the participants that we're looking for to get on board with this are participants that would fit the legacy Juniper Canyon profile. These are people who are not thriving or getting everything out of their life that they believe that they can, that they're hurting because of some of these things: isolation, mental illness, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, all of these things, where they're ready to take that first step on a hero's journey to something more. People who are 18 and above, men or woman, who wants to engage in a hero's journey, and then they're willing to share that. And like Nick said, maybe be a part of this post, go to the film festivals and to continue to be a part of this, because this is their journey. This is their story. And with that, we're lucky enough to have some resources and some generosity to be able to offer this to many more people who otherwise would not be able to afford it. So my hope is with these videos and with this invitation, we can get it out to people. We all know someone who is struggling to move past that. I would offer this project and this opportunity for them. And once that offer is made, just so everyone is aware, what that will look like is two parts. we're going to do our full application process, and everything's going to, from our end, they have to be approved and have to be a fit, just like any other client enrolling in Legacy. But the other part is they're going to talk with Nick, and they're going to talk with the filmmakers to understand what they are choosing into and what that looks like. And then there's choice and there's consent. One of the things that makes me excited about this project is that if we don't find a way to tell these stories with authenticity and with truth, what we're finding is in that silence, what ends up getting promoted is a lot of misinformation, a lot of fear, and that has really detrimental impacts. When people are fearful to pursue help because of misinformation, just capturing the worst of what behavioral health care can be, it has real detrimental effects. Part of the importance of this project is to really, really address that and be able to pull back the curtain and ultimately elevate care across behavioral health care, but also, really importantly, elevate access to care. How exciting would that be to have this project be so profound that it's actually being looked at to inform policy and care? This project can be in that vein of shining a light on what's good and on that light so that it can offer a place of hope.
The cool thing about the Legacy team is you guys have been around from the beginning trying to elevate those standards. So for me, it's a big win. I don't even feel the need to say, like, I hope you do this, I hope you do that. I just hope they show up and roll the cameras. And I hope that there's enough people willing to just be authentic on the camera, because I know what the broad outcome of that story, I know what that's going to be.